Hey everyone, welcome back. Thank you for joining me today. I think today is a very, very important topic that I'm going to talk about. And that topic is joy, it's happiness. Those are sort of interchangeable in my mind, but I think there's a key difference in the way that other people view joy versus happiness. I think joy is a state of mind. I think that happiness is also a state of mind, but I think most people would maybe see joy as a state of mind and maybe see happiness as more of a situation that you're in. And I do have a Bible verse, a Bible passage about joy to start this off. But this is not deeper than just loving God and others. But loving God and loving others, I think, is where we find joy. And I think that it is a little bit too vague when we think about it. So we need to make it more practical, and that is what I'm going to do today. So first, we'll start with Acts 26:24 through 29. And this is when Paul is on trial, and he's talking to King Agrippa, and King Agrippa is just trying to get Paul to explain why he's innocent. And he's in front of King Agrippa, and Paul is preaching the gospel to these people. And so he doesn't even really defend himself. He just starts preaching the gospel to these people. And so this is where it leads off on verse 24. And as he was saying these things in his defense, Festus said with a loud voice, "Paul, you are out of your mind. Your great learning is driving you out of your mind." But Paul said, "I am not out of my mind, most excellent Festus, but I am speaking true and rational words. For the king knows about these things, and to him I speak boldly. For I am persuaded that none of these things has escaped his notice, for this has not been done in a corner. King Agrippa, do you believe the prophets? I know that you believe." And Agrippa said to Paul, "In a short time, would you persuade me to be a Christian?" And Paul said, "Whether short or long, I would to God that not only you, but also all who hear me this day might become such as I am, except for these chains." And so that really just highlights the true joy that Paul had, where he was literally on trial in chains and preaching the gospel and saying, "Hey guys, I want all of you to have what I have, to be to feel what I feel except for these chains." And it just points to the true joy that Paul had in Jesus, in God. And so I would like to, the first thing that I see from that story is that nothing is truly objective. I even have written down here, barring physical problems, the only problems that we have are because of the way that we perceive them. And that even the physical problems, like Paul had, he was in chains, and even then, he didn't. His joy did not depend on his circumstance, and that I think is very, very important. All of our problems are only problems because of the way that we perceive them. So being in traffic can be very frustrating. And again, I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. All of these episodes are just notes to self. I haven't mastered any of these, but I am constantly working on them and trying to bring them into my life and really make the most out of all of these lessons that I'm learning. And I like teaching these lessons to you guys because I think they'll help anyone who hears them. So traffic can be a very frustrating thing. If you're stuck in traffic, I get it. But it can also be perceived as extra time to listen to a podcast or listen to music. Or you can shut off all of the extra stuff that you have on, like the podcast and the music, and just give yourself time to think. You're in traffic, you're getting to the place that you're going, but you don't have to focus too much on the road. And you can just think. You can clear out thoughts, but it can also be frustrating, and it only affects you. And that can be taken to the total extreme where you lose a loved one. A lot of people, most people, and I know it's very hard to think differently than this, but many people, when they lose a loved one, they're thinking that I'm sad that he's gone. When they could be thinking, I'm so glad that I had time to be with him, to know him. And I know that's a very difficult mindset, but I think it's not impossible. I think any of you could realize that it's not impossible, and we all know this. And I think that's a muscle that just needs to be, it just needs to be worked on, like any sort of muscle. The world is what we make of it, even if our minds are hard to control. So that's the whole thing. I know it's hard to control our minds, but the world is what we make of it. This is an insight that I've just been going through a lot in my head. It's been on my mind every time that I am in a bad mood, whether I'm angry or frustrated or bored or tired. That if you can be in a bad mood for no reason, you can be in a good mood for no reason. I mean, come on, how good is that? How good is that? And it's so true, and we all know it, that there's plenty of times that the slightest inconvenience comes in our life, and it's something that we couldn't control. Sometimes it is something we can control, but it just completely ruins our day. And it was something small. We're in a bad mood for no reason. Then why can't we do the opposite? Even when good things happen, sometimes we're in the wrong mindset and it ruins our day. If you can be in a bad mood for no reason, you can be in a good mood for no reason. This is something I'm constantly telling myself. I'm actually going to bring up a personal example of this today. I was working with my dad, and there was something that he forgot that we had to do. And then the time came that, a customer needed that thing done. And instead of being super frustrated that, oh man, why did he forget that? Why? Like, now I'm annoyed because my dad forgot to do that, and now I have to do it quickly, and I don't know if I'm going to have time. Instead of being frustrated, being angry about that, I was like, oh my goodness. I need to realize that my dad has a lot of stuff going on in his mind, and most of the things he doesn't forget. But this is the one thing that he forgot. And so I'm given the opportunity here to resolve that issue that unfortunately he created. That didn't have to be an issue. But the amount of times that we avoid those because he's thinking ahead, it's just changing my mindset, changing the way that I perceive this situation that could have been really annoying and frustrating and ruined my day. But instead, because I've practiced this for a little bit, I was able to turn that around, even look at it as a compliment for him. And it just made me look at my father better as a boss, as a father, and it just made my own day better. And when you think about it, that would only ruin my day. Being frustrated about something that someone else did, even if it's a big inconvenience or a big problem that they created for you, it really only affects you from the way that you look at it. So worrying about your future isn't going to make your performance better. Maybe it'll make you work harder. Maybe. But there's plenty of smart people that would disagree with that. I don't know the answer to that. I do worry about my future, and personally, I don't think it helps me work harder. I think it only discourages me because I feel like I'm not going to get to where I want to go. Happiness is a mindset, not a circumstance. So it's all the exact same thing said in different ways. And I think it's going to resonate with people in different sayings. So that being in a good mood for no reason is better than being in a bad mood for no reason. I think that one really applies to me and really resonates with me. Whereas this one, happiness is a mindset, not a circumstance, it can apply to a lot of people. I mean, in circumstances where maybe you have a job that you don't necessarily love. Well, there's two choices there. You can be happy in that, or, and I guess these can happen at the same time, you can be happy in the situation you're in and hope for a better one. But if you don't take the action to get to that better one, especially when it comes to maybe a job you don't like, if you don't start applying to other places that you think you're going to enjoy better, then that's on you. But while you're in that job that you're not necessarily loving, I guarantee there's something you can find joy in every single day. Maybe you do construction and you don't love it, but it's something that you got to do for now. And you're not in the situation where you can switch jobs right now. Well, find joy in the fact that you're building something, that you are actually creating value for someone, for people, for society in general. Many people struggle with their jobs because they don't see what value it brings to the world. And so they feel like they're working for work's sake and they're making money. They're just working to make money and they don't actually find purpose in their work. But I think you always can, because you wouldn't be getting paid if it wasn't bringing someone value. So that's a good way to look at a job that maybe you don't love. And then when it comes to specific people, when specific people make you mad, I think this insight is a good one to remind yourself. Wherever you point the finger of blame, you also point the finger of power. And this is just a huge issue with society right now. Constantly, people are blaming others, blaming society, blaming their parents, blaming their ex-boyfriends or girlfriends, blaming their friends for the situations that they're in. But if I take that example that I used earlier about the slight inconvenience that I had at work today, and let's say I took it to heart, I was very frustrated, I blamed my dad for putting me in a bad mood. Well, that only gives him the power to put me back in a good mood. And so I'm literally giving someone that I'm frustrated with the power to control my emotions. And that's a very small example, but people do this constantly. I have this written down with exes. If you blame an ex-boyfriend or an ex-girlfriend about a habit that you still have today, you are giving them the power to control your future relationships. So one that I see constantly, and actually I went through this personally, where I had a relationship with a girl and she could not trust me for whatever reason. She had a very, very tough time trusting me, and it was because, and she blamed it on her ex-boyfriend who gave her reasons not to trust. And I get it. There's stuff that we go through, and the situations that we go through do shape our mentalities. But she was letting her ex-boyfriend not only ruin their relationship, which, I get it. If someone's giving you reasons not to trust them, you probably shouldn't. But she was allowing her ex-boyfriend to affect her future relationship as well. And it was it's crazy that we're allowing people in our past, people that we don't even care about what they think of us anymore, we are for some reason giving them the power to control a lot of the times our mindsets, but even sometimes relationships. And so the next thing I'd say is that everyone talks about not wanting to waste their time. But I don't think anyone really knows what that means. I think the only waste of time is time that we spend worrying or angry or frustrated or sad about something that we can't control. And if it is something that we can control, I think we should just get up and fix it. You know, if you're frustrated about something that you can fix, go ahead and fix it. You won't think about it anymore. But this is one of the main reasons why I stopped paying attention to politics. Not because I think it's unimportant. I do think politics is very important. And I do want to stay in relationships with people that I agree with politically, but it's deeper than that. It's not because of their political views, but the reason is because I think people's fundamental values are reflected in their political views, if that makes any sense. So I want to stay with people who believe in what I believe, basically, when it comes to fundamental values, not necessarily in the details, not always. Yeah, in politics, I would pay attention to politics so much, and I would watch podcasts constantly, every day, 3 hours, 4 hours of podcasts every day, just talking about the newest thing that's going on in DC and the Ukrainian war across the globe and Israel Palestine and I stopped listening before all of this stuff happened, but every day I was like, oh my goodness, why am I like stressed out about this Russia-Ukraine war that I have no control over? I'm completely disconnected from this. I know that the U.S. is connected to basically anything that goes on in the world, it seems like. But I was just so stressed about things that were beyond my control. And I think that is the only true wasted time. It's not even just wasted time, but it's just a waste of energy. I would be so low energy because I'd constantly be thinking about these things that I can't even control. Like, why am I stressing about this? I understand politics is important, but if you're revolving your life around the news and what's going on across the globe, these problems that our brains are not built to deal with all of the Earth's issues at the same time every day. We are not supposed to care about everything all the time. Actually, that's a good question. How much are we supposed to care? And all I know is that the answer is not everything, everywhere, all the time. That is not the answer. And so when it comes to joy, when it comes to happiness, I think that's all a choice in the end. I think we all know that. But practically, I think helping others, loving God, loving others, being generous is the way to be satisfied with yourself. I think satisfaction, joy, happiness, all those words, that's what we're truly looking for. And I am on a mailing list with Chris Williamson, my favorite podcaster. And so I want to read this quick essay that he wrote about being present in the moment, about being happy, and how it's all a choice. And he starts with a quote from Richard Webster, which says, 20 years from now, you'd give anything to be this exact age, exactly this healthy, in this exact moment. Take a second to enjoy it. And he goes on to say, we trade the thing we want for the thing which is supposed to get it. We give up time to make money so that we can finally have more time when we have enough money. We give up happiness to achieve success so that we can finally enjoy happiness when we achieve enough success. And he goes on to a Sam Harris quote, which says, however much you feel you need to plan for the future, to anticipate it, to mitigate risks, the reality of your life is now. Even when we think we're in the present moment, we're, in very subtle ways, always looking over its shoulder, anticipating what's coming next. We're always solving a problem. And it is possible to simply drop your problem, if only for a moment. He goes on to say, many, maybe all of the things we do are in attempts to give ourselves a good enough reason to be here, existing in the present moment. Drugs stop the chatter of our mind, as does alcohol, and fighting, and reading, and dancing on a beach to a DJ as the sun sets. Our goal as awakened humans should be to lower the required height of the stimulus bar to a level where you can be present without having any of these inputs. If you can't be present with a coffee, you won't be present on a yacht. Think about how many times your presence has been hijacked by fears or worries or hopes for problems of the future, or regrets and victories around problems of the past, as you flee from boredom before it even rears its head with a screen in your pocket. We are so averse to time without distraction that we've become addicted to solving problems, so much so that our minds create problems purely for the purpose of solving them. The only thing you have is this moment. We're alive. How astronomically insane is that? Enjoy life. This is not a dress rehearsal. And so just not making problems out of things that don't have to be problems is a good way that I have found that raises my mood, at least for the moment. Really just sitting in the moment and that final part of that essay, just like, dude, we're alive. How insane is that? Just realizing the small things are what matters. The relationships that we have is what matters. And do not let someone else affect your mood. No matter what inconvenience comes your way today, or tomorrow, or the next day, remind yourself that everything will be okay. And if you won't care about it in 5 years, you shouldn't care about it now. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next one.